I am starting to get convinced of a thesis that I had back in January, which led me to sell out of my copper position, which actually was really good for me at the time because, it ended up collapsing pretty badly. Copper is now trying to make a comeback, which is that a lot of these names are following each other. And what I mean by that is in January, I kind of realized silver, copper, gold were all kind of following each other. And that even though there was a copper thesis that was legitimate, it didn't care because it would just follow silver. If you look at all the semis, Qualcomm, Micron, Corning, AMD, Oracle, they're all following each other. Like yesterday to a T, if you put their charts on each other, they all went down at the same time. Some of them went down worse than others, but Qualcomm was down 20%, Micron was down 10%, GLW was down 7%. The point is they were all down a lot, and they all went up a lot at around 1:47 p.m. when everything reversed. And I think the interesting thing about this right here is, like, if you're bullish on one of them, you kind of got to be bullish on all of them, is the conclusion that I'm coming to. Yes, you can pick individual stocks, and yes, there's going to be divergences between individual names, and certain names will outperform others, and certain names will have more aggressive drawdowns or rebounds than others. But it kind of makes the case for SMH in general. I mean, if SMH is down, every single component in the semis will be down. The only thing that was barely down yesterday was Nvidia, because I think Nvidia has kind of separated itself into a league of its own. And quite frankly, it hasn't been running with any of the semis this year. So it kind of chooses to go up or down on itself. But like if Corning is down, Micron's going to be down. If Micron's down, all the CDNs are going to be down. If SanDisk is down, then the Photonics names are going to be down. I mean, Lumentum, this thing was down 8% yesterday. Now it's up 3.75%. Micron's up 4%. They're both, I mean, it was down. Lumentum was down 5% yesterday. Micron was down 4% yesterday. They're both up 4% in the pre-market. It's one of those things where it's very similar to each other. So it's kind of just like, yeah, it's definitely algos as well. But I also think this trade, no matter how you're playing it, you've got to pay attention to every single name in the trade. And there's obviously like 10 of them that are kind of the big ones. But being selective here is valuable, but also you're part of a group, even when you're selecting, because I find it hard to believe that one of these semiconductor names is going to go to the moon while the others are all being dragged down. Now, obviously, if there's earnings or a big, event or an acquisition or something, yes, that is going to create a material difference in some of these names, like a Wolfspeed that got pumped by Citrini yesterday. And that stock is up 20% in the pre-market, but the majority of them go up and down kind of at the same time together. Yeah, memory goes together, optics go together. I would agree with that. Corning and Nebius aren't necessarily moving with Micron. It's just yesterday when everything started falling at once and then everything started reversing at once. I think if we get a serious drawdown, you're not going to be safe if you're in any of the names, I guess is my point. You will have outperformance if you're in one name versus another. If, there's a certain headline around memory that's important for Micron, or a certain headline around photonics that's important for Corning. Or to the downside, if there's a bad headline, right, those are going to be affected more deeply. But if you're in the bucket of names that the market has basically said, this is all we care about, we're going to sell off Meta, which is down the pre-market. We're going to sell off Microsoft. We're going to sell off software, which it was disgusting yesterday that software couldn't get even a hint of a rotation from the semi sell-off, which is why yesterday was also so funny, because everyone was like, okay, I'm going to go long ServiceNow today. And ServiceNow is red along with semiconductors, even though Micron was down 10%. So it was just an ugly day for everything until we got the reversal. You're going to go down with the ship or up with the ship if these names go up or down. It feels like that's just one of the things to kind of understand, which is a little scary, because if there is a crack in the narrative, then I think they're all taking a pretty ugly dip. But at this point, you got to kind of believe there's not going to be a crack in the narrative in order for this train to continue. And hopefully, Jensen gives us a pretty good earnings that helps this continue this momentum.